Why did I get this 72-inch height-adjustable Kobalt work table? Let me explain. Lowe's sent me this for free so that I could beat it up on video and show you if it was good or not. So, let's do this. I'm about ready to load this Kobalt table up with some of the heaviest stuff in my garage, including some engines and a whole bunch of stuff that goes with engines, because I need to rebuild that engine right there that's on the stand, and all the components are going to be on that table, getting prepped and cleaned and ready to install on this block right here. Before I try to test its 2,000-pound capacity, let's go over a few things that I really like about this Kobalt work table. You can store a whole bunch of different pegboard accessories out here like this, so if you've got tools you don't want on the work table all the time, but you need quick access, this is a double-sided bonus. Check this out. You can utilize the inside as a pegboard as well, which is nice because you might not always have access to one of the sides or any of the sides if you've got it pushed up against walls. So you can still use the inside on both sides. Another feature I know I'm going to love about this Kobalt workbench are these slightly angled off corners. I have run into this corner right here multiple times, and it is not fun. I probably should have just buzzed it off. Bonus feature number 3, check this out. Easy storage concept with the metal base on this. You can use your magnetic socket holders, and they're entirely out of the way under there. All 3 sets that I will need to do my engine rebuild are nice and secure and totally out of the way. One thing everybody's going to like about this Kobalt work table, it's only 4 steps to get it together because some of it comes pre-assembled, which is really nice. It saves you some time and some effort. And I did this in 15 minutes by myself. And if you're looking for some tips and recommendations, you want to watch somebody put it together, the second half of this video is me putting this together. But before I show you how easy it is to put together, let's load it up with a ton of weight that I've got sitting in the garage, some engines, some other stuff, and you'll be surprised how much I fit on here. So with the engine and transmission on there, yeah, V6 and a 5-speed manual sitting on this thing. I have like more than half of this to work with still. Let's give it the quick wiggle test. You know what? Let's see if this thing, I'm going to show you, it's not like braced up against anything. It's not touching anything back here. It's just kind of close to the bumper. But the bumper's not even attached to the car, so that really doesn't matter. If you had this butted up against the wall, it's going to be even more secure than what I'm about ready to show you. So let's see. Does it wiggle? No. And you know what? I'm punching it. It's not moving. Do people punch their workbenches? I don't know, but I run into mine with stuff enough to justify punching it as a test, right? I don't know what in my garage would weigh 2,000 pounds in that amount of space. But you know what? I'm going to put my heaviest stuff I've got available on that. We've already got an engine. We've already got a transmission. And that's not a small engine. It's a V6. And that's a 5-speed manual transmission that mates to it. So let's add the heads. All right. This is a dual overhead cam engine. That's only half of the heads. We need the other side. Hold on. Here's the other side. We've got more head going on there. All right. We've got still, if I've got my entire block, my entire head, and all the pistons and the transmission on this thing, with all that on this Kobalt work table, I've still got 22 inches of space to either store something or work right here, and that's plenty of space to work. I mean, my engine block only takes up, let's see, like 14 inches. And I'm going to show you, you know what, let's put some more weight on this. I've got something big to put there. So I rearranged and actually added another engine block. So now there's 12 cylinders of engine block on there. And the head that fits one of them, 2 sides, front and left, whatever you want to call it. And then the 5-speed transmission over there. And these are cast iron, by the way. These are not lightweight engine blocks. And that still leaves me about 25 inches of space to work. If, for whatever reason, you need 2 engine blocks that had a 5-speed transmission on the table at one time. We're still going to load this thing up, but maybe at this point you're thinking, dang, that's a really nice work table, and maybe I want one. These work tables are exclusive to Lowe's, and I got mine at Lowe's.com. Free shipping. That was really nice. If you're looking for the best deals on these, I will leave links down in the description for you, and there's also a YouTube shopping option. If you know how to use that, there's going to be a little product tag that shows up on the lower left-hand area of your screen. You might have to tap it if you're on a phone, or you might have to wiggle your mouse if you're watching on a computer. But those will get you the best deals on these. I've got more stuff to load up there. Let's do it. But first, the wiggle test. The old wiggle test and see if, it gives us any issues. And keep in mind, again, there's nothing behind this table. It's not against the wall. I think most people would put them up against the wall. Mine's going to be freestanding for a little while. So this is actually a pretty important test for me. No noises, no wiggling, no noises. It is solid as a rock right now with a completely asinine method of loading the table 2/3 with most of the weight and then deciding you want a little work area right here. So what do we do next? I think we load it up even more. So we've added 1, 2, 3 car batteries, still have a little bit of room and all that weight. A lot of people might not know how much an engine block and another engine block and transmission, the heads to all that stuff weighs, but maybe you've moved a car battery or two in your day and you realize that they are dense little objects. They are heavy for their size. Let's give it the wiggle test. And you know what? I'm probably still gonna put more stuff on this to see how much it can handle. All right, it's not wiggling a bit. That thing is solid as a rock right now, and again, it's not connected to anything, it's not pushed up against the wall, it's just freestanding pretty close to my bumper, but it's not touching the bumper, and the bumper's not even touching the car, honestly. So that wouldn't do much good if it even was. I've still got room. I could probably fit another 1, 2, 3, 4 car batteries here if I lined them up right, but I don't have 4 more car batteries. What do I have? I'm going to look around and see what I've got left in the garage that's heavy, dense, and will fit right there. I found another 100 pounds I could load up on this thing, and it's kind of offset. There's not a whole lot of weight over this leg right here. So the weight distribution on this is, most of it is on 3 legs. So you would think if this is going to wiggle around, it would probably do it now. So let's give it the old test. It's passing the wiggler. That's for sure. All right, we've got another round of passing the wiggler test. At this point, I've used almost everything in my garage that's heavy. We've got the transmission, we've got 2 engine blocks, we've got 2 heads, we've got 3 batteries, and 100 pounds of dumbbells sitting right here. I think I can fit. So here's the update. I found some more heavy stuff that would fit in those weird spots. I've got old wrenches and socket adapters in this bin, and I've got a whole bunch of nuts and bolts that go to this rebuild. The heaviest, most fullest ones I could find. I've got, what, 5 of those? Yeah, 5 of those. Oh, 6, 7 of those if you count the big ones. There's also a small sledgehammer hanging out back there. A big piece of the subframe for the car that I'm restoring is on there. And I loaded the front control arms on here as well. Those are heavy duty. They take all of the weight of your suspension, basically. And then the crankshaft for this engine is also on there. And the bolt for the crankshaft. So this thing is loaded up pretty much as heavy and as full as I can get it. And it's probably as loaded up as most people would ever need it. With it loaded to the gills, let's see, does it pass the wiggle test? So far, the old wiggler's working. No noise, no movement. That thing is solid as a... I just want to say, I'm putting a lot of trust into this thing because it is holding some very critical parts to my rebuild, including the block and the spare block, the pistons, the transmission. You get it. There's a lot of critical things on here. If this broke, my entire rebuild would be basically in the gutter. So if this thing was not a good table, there's not a chance I would trust it with that type of stuff on this. So after loading this 72-inch Kobalt work table up with the heaviest stuff I have in my garage, what are my final thoughts? Well, tell you what, this thing's going to work out great, especially when I've only got 1 engine and maybe a couple other parts on there, because then I'm going to have so much other room to actually build the engine and work on the parts and assemble. And that's why I've shoved these 2 things under there, because I've got a clean parts and a dirty parts bin. So when those get clean, they're going to go in that bin, and then that bin's going to be the one I work out of, and then assemble the stuff on the top here. I am more than confident that this thing can handle all of the abuse that I'm going to put at it with an engine rebuild, because I've already confirmed that it can hold more than enough of the stuff I've got in the garage. So with the Kobalt work table fully loaded up with all my heaviest stuff I have available in the garage, can it pass the amateur karate kick? Let's find out. Yes, it passed the amateur karate kick. I don't know if you're actually going to be karate kicking your Kobalt work table, but how many times do workbenches get run into by other objects or stub your toe into the side of it and you slam stuff into it and onto it? Well, you got to know if it's going to pass that type of stuff, and here we go one more time. Yeah, Kobalt karate kick. Here's how I'm going to set up this work table for my current scenario that I'm rebuilding this engine block right here, okay? So the engine block is on the stand, and I'm going to do this kind of like an assembly line. The things that need to go on that block first are going to be right here, and they don't need a whole lot of space to work. I just got to put the 3 rings on it, and then they go in the engine block. So one by one, all 6 of these are going to be gone, and then I'm going to have this space to work on putting the crank in there. I probably got to clean it a little bit first, but the crank is now going to have this much space to work with. That's more than enough. And then once the crank is ready, it goes on the bottom of that engine block. After the crank, the only thing left to go on that block is basically the oil pump and the water pump. And then I've got that much space to then start working on the heads. I'm probably going to leave the transmission up here for now because it's heavy and I just don't want to move it, and there's enough space on here. And I'm eventually going to have to work on it after the heads, and I think I've got enough space to do everything. But if I get crunched for space, yes, I could remove a couple of these components that I'm not working on, because some of this stuff in the bins will make it up onto the work table. So I might have to adjust slightly, but what I love is that I can fit 4 of those bins under there. If I've got the caps on and stack them, I could actually fit 4 of those. And that's more than enough parts that I need to rebuild this engine and transmission. Okay, so we've determined that the Kobalt work table is a worthy work table. It can hold a bunch of stuff on it and it doesn't wiggle around. It's solid. So let me show you how easy this thing is to build. It only took me about 15 minutes and I was doing it by myself. If you've got a helper, it's obviously going to be a little bit quicker. And it's only 4 steps. Here we go. The box got a little bit beat up on my way into the garage. This is no fault on Lowe's or Kobalt or the shipping company. It was me dragging it in here, so don't fault anything here. Here's something really nice. Hassle-free lifetime guarantee. You should never have a problem with your Kobalt product. However, if you do, return the item to the place of purchase for a free replacement. No questions asked. Like I said, I mangled the box doing this by myself, dragging it into the garage. It does say team lift, 131 pounds, and that would make this a heck of a lot easier. And that's how I recommend you move this thing. Either you pick it up, move it with 2 people, slide it with 2 people, or you can put it on some type of cart and dolly and roll it around. I removed all the extra cardboard and packaging so you can see what just the big stuff is that's involved here. So you're definitely going to want to check out the instructions. The nice thing about them is they're very well laid out, and it shows right here that there's only 12 major components of this thing total, 4 of which are the feet. So there's really only about 8 things you got to put together because the feet are already on it. And these 2 things, I will give you a word of warning here. These 2 things are slid into each other. So if you pick this up, it might slide apart because they're not bolted together yet. I would pick this up with 2 hands. Okay, maybe one on the top, one on the bottom brace there. Just like that. Because this, I'll show you just a second. This thing right here is not bolted to the bottom piece. It's just going to slide off of there like that. Okay, so just watch your fingers when you're taking that out of there. That's where your height adjustment comes from. So we're going to take both of these things out of there. These are basically the sides, okay, and the legs. You can see the feet are on the bottom. You've already got 4 of your components put together. And then you've got all this stuff up here. The hardware. Let's see what we get. Yep, that looks like all the hardware. I'm just going to set that off to the side for now. We'll come back to that. So the only other thing that's in this box, after you remove the hardware and the 2 side pieces, is the long brace on the bottom, which is in that plastic, and then the tabletop. Now, here's what I recommend. Leave the tabletop in the cardboard box so that it's not getting scratched up and pushed around and all that stuff before you even flip it over, because you could probably assemble this thing upside down and then flip it over so that it's just easier that way, believe me. Let's get into it. One thing I do appreciate is the large lettering and the orientation arrows on these things. Now, the legs, I could have figured out which way was up on that. But sometimes you get stuff like this, and you just don't know, because, like, it's just a folded piece of metal. So if you got the up arrow, it helps a lot off the get-go. This is really nice the way they package this. For Kobalt, they've got everything lined up in here, how many you're supposed to have, the sizes and all that, and the tool right there for you. So the best way to work from this thing, flip it over and just cut the notches out. They even give you the stuff on how to do that, little stencils. Because then you've got it all in one spot, and you don't have to worry about trying to fuddle through all those things that sometimes just come in a bag. These come pre-labeled like all that. That is great. It's a really nice way to do it. 2 support triangles that are in here as well, which go in, I think, the back upper corners. There's 2 of them, I think. Yes, both labeled E. So I'm going to cut the corners of the box so I can lay this cardboard flat, so I've got a little bit more of a work surface and it's not all just confined inside of there. So you'll see what I'm talking about in just a second here. So now that the corners are cut, these kind of flap down, and it gives you a little bit more room. Here's the entire contents of what you get inside the box, and it should be pretty straightforward and easy to put together. Knock on wood. This ships together, but you still have to secure them. This is your height adjustability. This is how you're going to choose how high you want your work table to be. I'm going to choose it about waist height for me. For what I'm working on, that helps to have it that low. And you can see these are easily labeled with the up arrow. There's B, there's C, there's D, there's B. Those are symmetrical, and so is E. The tabletop is A, and then that long piece up there, that's F. I'll call him Frank, just for fun. And that's your, those are all your fasteners and the tool to put it all together. And I already know this is going to be way easier than building a wooden workbench, because you know what? I've done that before, and I'm not going to do that in this space where I need to put this thing. Before I dig into this too far, I do want to point out, Kobalt's nice enough to give you all these please contacts if anything's missing for the hardware. I actually stuck this to the bottom end of my table so that while I'm working on it, if anything's missing, I'll know who to call. And they've also got it on the bottom of there too. And remember, on the other side of this box, it did say, you know, the lifetime warranty, anything wrong with it, I can just take it back. I don't foresee that happening. This is the instructions for the 72-inch model. It's going to be basically the same for the other sizes. I wanted the biggest one. This is the biggest, baddest one they got. The different model numbers there is just the different colors. This comes in like a black color that I've got, and it also comes in a grayish silver color. I always love it when brands include this page with the instructions. This is one of the first pages in there, and it's got the detailed part numbers, the description, and the quantity of each, so you can quickly check what you've got, if you've got enough to put this together. And it's got the exploded view, basically, of how it goes together. So if you're ever wondering, hey, how the heck does this thing actually piece together, you can usually reference this page. Step 1 says we're connecting B, the sides, to the big board. Hey, this is going to start looking like a work table real quick. It does say keep it on a soft surface upside down, like the cardboard or a piece of carpet or whatever protects this thing, because you are going to be moving this around a little bit. You don't want to be grinding it on concrete. And it tells you make sure the bolts are screwed tightly, all of them, okay? Okay? For this first step, you do need to slide this top piece off of this bottom footed piece. It's pretty easy. You might have to get a rubber mallet out if they ship a little tight. Mine just kind of slides like that. And then you've got this piece there, and then you've got this piece here. Both are labeled B. And now you're attaching those B's to that A using some double A's. I'd like to point out, while you're building it upside down, all the lettering is going to be upside down on the legs. Up is down and down is up, okay? Hope that makes sense. So here's your visual for this step. You want to line up the holes. And what I'm saying here is you've got 2 threaded holes on each side, and they need to line up with those holes there. And you use 4 on each side of these. Now, I highly suggest you hand tighten these first. Once you've got them all finger tight, you really only need a handful of turns on this thing. You get them a little bit tight, and then you rotate which side you go to. You get them a little bit tight, and then go back to the other side, and you'll notice that the other side got a little looser as you tighten the other one. So go back and forth a few times. Make sure you actually get this right. Now, whenever you're using an Allen key, it's a good idea to not over-tighten, okay? So once they feel like they're getting very snug, call it good there. Good tip to make sure this is a solid workbench. Once we flip this thing over, we are going to retighten every nut and bolt. Step 1 is done. Took me 2 minutes to get the 8 total fasteners into the side plates to secure them to the wood top. So now what you do, step 2, you're going to slide these into their respective panels, and they're not symmetrical, so make sure you know which one's left and which one's right. And then you're going to set the height. What you're going to do, you're going to use these little bolt holes on each side to decide how high you want this workbench to be. And for me, I'm working on large objects, so I don't want this thing to be very high up in the air because I want to be able to take them off a little bit lower. If you've got an engine up at your chest to take off of a workbench, it's not as easy if it's down by your waist. It's just the gravity and physics of it, so I'm going to put this at its absolute lowest and see how that works out for me first. So, step 2, you've got 16 total bolts and 16 total nuts that you got to take out of this thing, and then you just put it together. Let's do this real quick. Goes the camera. Whee! This step involves the majority of the fasteners, so check it out. Once you're done with this step, all you've got is really this stuff remaining and then a couple of those that go somewhere else. So you have to slide this piece into that piece there, and it can be a little tough because these fit pretty tight. If you can line one side up real good, get one side in, okay, and then the other side, then you're gonna have to press that in. Watch your fingers. You're pulling this out a little bit and pressing this in with your thumb. And I'm also gonna use my knee a little. And then you'll get it to slide in. Just went in. There we go. So now I've got both sides in. Slides all the way down. And this is where you can find your height adjustments, okay? Here's all your holes. Tons of different options. I'm going to go all the way down. You can hear that's all the way bottomed out on the end there. And it's going to have holes that line up here, holes that line up there, and then same thing on the other side. And the easiest way to put this together, I do most of it by hand. You want the Allen key side on the outside of the workbench, and then the nut on the inside. Just find the nut, and then just start screwing this with your hand until you get it finger tight again. Do the same thing for the bottom one. And then grab the nut in the back with your fingers. Might help if you have a socket or a wrench, but I was able to do this just by hand. You can kind of get that nut to stop spinning, and then it'll bite once it starts tightening down onto here. And I got it pretty good and tight. That's my measurement there. Pretty good and tight. Rinse and repeat that 3 more times, and then you've basically got this 90% together. Step 2 is done. Took about 10 minutes, okay? This one took a little bit longer than anticipated because trying to get these 2 pieces to line up by your own, if you had another person, it would probably take seconds. One of them took me a few minutes to line up, and then it takes you maybe 2 or 3 minutes total to nut and bolt the whole thing together with 8 nut and bolt combos on each side. It's going to be 16 nut bolt combos that you need total for step 2. And then guess what? There's only 2 steps remaining, and this one's real simple. Step 3 is these little triangles. That's it. You just got to put those little triangles on. You've got 8 fasteners to do it with. Fastener label BB, and they just they go into the back. Okay, and I didn't realize if I was working on the front or the back of this thing until I didn't realize I had kind of covered it up with the part that I'm about ready to use. There's the front. So now I know that the back is over here. So the triangles are just going to go here to here. I'll lay it out for you before I zip them in there. This is a really simple step. All you got to do is line up the triangles holes with the holes on this and the holes on this. Not the big hole here. There's 2 threaded holes and 2 threaded holes here. And you just line it up, which way? There we go. Now, I do recommend that you run the top one in first, just a little bit, because that'll stop this from walking around on you. It's a little top heavy, so it kind of wants to wobble. So that's my one recommendation on this step. But other than that, this step's only going to take you about 30 seconds, honestly. Step 3 was super easy, just to place the triangles on each side, and there's 6 fasteners total, no nuts, just the bolts. After step 3, they tell you to place this upright, but I'm actually going to wait till after step 4 because I just want to show you how to adjust the feet on the bottom, and it's easier to film that way while this thing is still up in the air upside down. Step 4 is really easy. All you got to do is put the back brace across and screw it in. Now, this can be a little bit of a challenge when you're by yourself. I'll show you how I did it. What I did, so they go in up here. There's 2 holes on the back side that you nut on the other side. And this is on the back side, the side that you put the triangles on. So step 4 by yourself, if you have it upside down still, it's pretty easy. You just line it up. I kind of pinned my leg against it to hold it up and used my hand on one side to hold it up. And once you get one through there, it's a lot easier to walk yourself back up to the other side, lift it up, and push it back through. That step takes about 1 minute or less. Quick disclaimer here. This is basically a symmetrical left to right, front to back build. However, there are only holes on one side of these legs to put the back brace on. So make sure, this is a flashback to step number 2 when I told you make sure the right and the left legs go in the correct position. Now if you did it wrong, and I actually did, I was looking at it incorrectly, it's actually a quicker fix than you think. You don't have to take the whole thing apart because it's symmetrical. So what you need to do, move the triangle to the side that's going to have the holes for the rear brace. Now, I should have checked that first. I'm going to show you how these feet adjust. You would want to do this likely while it was flipped right side up so you can tell if the top is level, but this is for demonstration purposes. Both of the nuts are touching each other when they ship to you, at least mine did on all 4 feet. So you would unscrew the shaft like that and then lower one of the nuts and then tighten the nut against the foot, the base of the foot there. The threads on this bolt are pretty long. You could seriously make some crazy adjustments if you needed to. Back to the end of step 3, we're flipping it over, and if you're by yourself, it's pretty easy to kind of just flip it from upside down on the tabletop to this way, so it's kind of sitting on its edge like that, and then you can get back under there and then flip it all the way up. If you've got 2 people, this is probably a lot easier. You will notice that you've got a couple spare parts at the end of this. 2 nuts and 4 bolts. That is normal and it's okay. Don't worry about that. Those are your spare parts. 4 simple steps and it is done. Altogether, you could probably do this by yourself in 15 to 20 minutes if you got all the tools and space lined up ready to do it. If you've got 2 people, it makes it a whole bunch easier because this is a 6 foot this way, 2 foot that way, and 100 and some odd pounds. If you're not ready to do something like that by yourself, make sure you've got somebody with you. I've got it set at its lowest height, and that puts it just under 33 inches. And that's perfect for me because I'm going to have heavy objects up here, and I need to be working on them. So you got to think about how high the object is going to be also when you're working on something. So if I've got an engine or a transmission, like I'm an extra foot or 14 inches up here. So just something to consider. What are you actually working on your workbench when you set that height? So let's talk about the color. This is the black option. You can see my shadow in it, but you can't see my reflection. It's more of a satin black, and it has a bit of a texture to it that you can even feel with your finger. Whereas this cap that I'm holding is more of a gloss black, and you can see the reflection of the window behind me. You can't really see the reflection of anything on that, just my shadow. This 72-inch Kobalt, it's going to work out absolutely great for me while I'm rebuilding this engine. I showed you the assembly line. I showed you how much weight it can fit on it. And if you were just as impressed and you're thinking, dang, I want one of those, I worked with Lowe's to get you the best deal on this thing. Down in the description, I will leave some links, and also, you can shop right from the YouTube screen. In the lower left-hand corner, there's going to be a little product tag that pops up. You might have to tap your screen if you're on a phone, or wiggle the mouse if you're on a computer, but it'll be over in the left-hand corner. Those 2 shopping options will get you the best deal on these Kobalt work tables. Here's a good question. Why buy a work table when you could just build one out of wood? Well, I'm not a real good carpenter. My work table wouldn't be solid, it wouldn't be straight. And you know what? It would take me a lot longer than this thing took. It only took me about 15 minutes. And these, they come apart a lot easier, just some nuts and bolts, whereas if you had to take apart a wooden one to move it somewhere, that would be a bit of a hassle. So I went with the Kobalt. And with its 2,000 pound capacity and its metal construction, I'll probably have this thing for an absolute lifetime.